Live on. Boa tarde, pessoal. Para quem acompanha Esports101, a gente está de volta. Sejam todos muito bem-vindos aqui à segunda temporada. Eu estou me ouvindo, peraí. Eu estava com a live aberta, não estava. Nós somos um podcast sobre profissões dos esportes. A gente tem aqui papos descontraídos e também informativos para quem quer ingressar nesse mercado. E hoje a gente tem um convidado internacional, então o episódio, na verdade, ele vai ser em inglês. Então vamos mudar aqui a língua. Hi guys, welcome to Esports101. We are a Brazilian podcast about esport careers. So I'm Flavia, your co-host today. I'm a content creator and I do customer success services at the gaming market. And I'm here today with Marcelo.
Likewise. Yeah, also Rocket League and Mobile Legends. But yeah, started out with Dota. That's the game I used to play a whole lot. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, sure. So I'm Markus, 35 years old, co-founder and chief strategy officer at Epulze. I'm from a Swedish city called Örebro. It's especially compared to where you guys are from, Rio and Sao Paulo. It's a very small city, but it's like the sixth biggest city in Sweden. So it's right between Stockholm and Gothenburg. If you ever been to Sweden. And yeah, so founded Epulze 2015. Epulze is an esports entertainment company, and we're on a mission to grow esports. And we try to do that by connecting and creating value for different stakeholders within esports, as well as working with companies and partners that are trying to enter the space. And we're passionate about growing both amateur as well as professional esports. And I guess to grow one, you kind of have to expand on the other as well. And so what we've done during the past couple of years with Epulze is that we've built what we call the Epulze esports ecosystem, which is centered around this online esports competitions platform, where it's very much focused on the grassroots and amateur side of esports. Where we run daily, fully automated micro tournaments with prize money and other small prizes as prizes. And we do that for Dota 2, Valorant, Rocket League, Counter-Strike, and Mobile Legends. And we do have quite a global community, but our headquarters here in Sweden. We have local teams in Kyiv in Ukraine, Sao Paulo in Brazil, and subsidiary in Malaysia and in Kuala Lumpur. And next to this tournament platform, we've also built additional verticals where we have a pro tournament and event division, as well as a production and studio vertical. So we cater to both amateur, grassroots esports, and professional esports, as well as both players, but also if you're a viewer and trying to watch your favorite team play some nice esports.
What a CSO do? Like, what your activities like daily to people that don't know?
Right. So I do a bit of everything. I would say it's usually like that in a startup and in a company as well. Like you try to do a bit of everything, but mainly work with setting long-term strategic goals for the company and try to hash out like what's the general direction the company is heading. Try to figure out which games we should focus on, what long-term features we would try to build on the platform, what are the top KPIs that perhaps the investors are looking at, and in general, like which direction are we heading as a company, and try to align the management around working towards a single goal. Also work some with business development, a lot with sales, everything from smaller sponsorship sales to larger talks about perhaps investments, mergers and acquisitions, and everything surrounding that. And I think the third part is mainly surrounding communications to all the stakeholders we have in the company. I try to do our internal town hall meetings to make sure that the coworkers and everyone in the team is aligned. Both the players on the platform, how are we talking to them, what are we communicating, talking to sponsors, partners, and investors. But yeah, like I said, I feel like every day is a bit different, and you do a lot of different things. But yeah, mainly that. Try to set the general strategic decisions of the company, and in which direction are we moving.
No, I would ask like, what's your biggest challenge being an SEO, and how it is to have so many activities like in São Paulo and like worldwide?
Our biggest challenge, I don't see it as I see it as a company challenge, but I think in general this year has been challenging for a lot of companies, with the economic downturn and whatnot. I think it's a challenge for us as a company to be active in all the three major time zones. So, but it's lucky because we're Sweden, so we're kind of in the middle in the European time zone, and then 6 hours ahead of us we have Southeast Asia, where we have the team in Malaysia, and Frank, our chief business officer, in Singapore. So you have to perhaps get up a bit earlier to start talking to them, and then you have the whole day, and then 5-6 hours behind is Brazil and Latam. So then you have to stay up a bit later talking to them, and sometimes it's a bit of a struggle to keep everyone in all the time zones aligned, because someone who is just waking up and or just going to bed perhaps in Southeast Asia, they need to brief someone over in Latam and try to align around a certain specific goal. Yeah, as a company, I think the Russian invasion of Ukraine was a hurdle for us. We had a really large user base, given we started out with Dota 2 on the platform, and the CIS region has always had a very big Dota 2 population. Counter-Strike is also quite a substantial game there. So a lot of our active user base was focused around that region. But we managed to pivot a lot and put more focus and more effort into South America and Southeast Asia. And so our active user base, the demographics have shifted a lot, which was a lot of work to make that happen, but something we've been quite successful at. Yeah. Mm. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. We're feeling that as well. So I think this year has been a kind of a breakout year for Epulze, because we managed to get involved into 2 majors and 1 DPC. But sponsorship sales this year has been really hard. So it's not an easy year for any esport company. I think so. It's been a tough year. I think it's multiple things, but it's mainly investment money is not as easy to get a hold of as it used to be. Just a couple of years ago, it was really easy to get funded for an esports project, because there was a lot of hype around esports, and you could see like down the line, maybe 5-10 years later, it's going to be like a really profitable and big industry. But a lot of investors now, and we're feeling this as well, they shifted focus towards growth, and now instead we're focused on profitability and getting revenue and actually have some margins on everything we do. So that's been a tough year for Epulze as well, and we've been forced to scale back on some of the tech development and focus more on trying to increase sales, increase profitability on the events, and some of the sponsors that we have for some of the events. It's a tough situation for a lot of companies, I know, and I think a lot of sponsors that could potentially sponsor events, they're also cutting back on marketing. And one of the first things you're cutting back on when it comes to marketing is perhaps these more experimental new ventures that you haven't tried before. So you go back to, if you only have a certain small marketing budget, a lot of companies tend to take a step back, and they choose to spend that marketing budget where they know they will get results. And so if they haven't done esports sponsoring before, then probably that's like the first thing there that's going to disappear. And so yeah, I think it's been a tough year, but I also think that we're seeing probably a return within the next 1-2 years to a bit more normal situation where you can increase the sponsorship revenue and get back. But yeah, cash flow this year, it's been hard. It's like waiting for a sponsor to pay so we can pay partners and teams and whatnot, and some of these payments has also been late. So it's been a tricky situation, to say the least. But yeah, we'll pull through.
I do have a question, like to go more deep to Epulze business model. Like, what are the main activities and like the source of income? Like, you sell like the production of event or a competition and the broadcasting, or I don't know, I am a content creator and I want to do my tournament in the platform. Like how it is?
So we got a lot of different monetization models, and so we got kind of 3 main verticals. It's the Epulze automated tournament grassroots amateur platform, and on the platform we have a Prime membership. We have the Epulze platform currency, so you can purchase currency that you can use to enter tournaments. And then we do have some ads running on the platform as well. We also have platform sponsors, so sometimes we work with brands to set up branded tournaments or qualifiers for the bigger events and whatnot. So that's the kind of revenue side on the platform. The platform side of things are not that big revenue yet, because it requires a lot of active users. So that's kind of the long-term strategy, to build the player base on the tournament platform. And speaking of content creators, we're also working with a couple of content creators, setting up tournaments on behalf of them. So we work with teams, setting up a branded space on Epulze, where it's like epulze.com/team, and they can set up their own tournaments using our automated system. And then we're looking to do a rev share model as well. So the team could charge like $5 per month in order to participate in their tournaments, and we make sure to fund the prize pool, and we take a production cost, and the rest goes to the team so they can do more stuff for their fans as well. And then we have the pro tournaments. The pro tournaments, we see revenue from sponsors. There's also broadcast and media rights, as well as match statistics. You can sell that to news sites or companies who work with data to provide to betting sponsors and whatnot. And then we have the broadcasting side of things, where we do some production for other tournament organizers as well. So we're often involved in perhaps the B stream or stream the qualifiers and whatnot, and then we set up a production around that. We also recently started doing like Twitch advertisement and YouTube ads and whatnot, so get some additional revenue on that. And so everything is compiled into And the way we see it, we try to have some synergies between each vertical as well. So if you're someone who is watching the Epulze stream, we also do advertisement for the Epulze platform. And
Well,
for these, yeah, I lost you for a second, I thought. I'm not
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
It's okay.
Okay, cool. No, so when we get brands to be involved into these pro tournaments, then we have a live stream. We usually advertise the Epulse platform in that live stream as well. That leads to user growth. So try to create some synergies. Also with brands and sponsorship, we try to talk to brands and tell them it's important to not just sponsor this one big tournament once. It's also good to do perhaps a longer activation. And the way we can do that is work with all three different verticals. So you sponsored pro tournament, but you also perhaps do some studio activation, and then you do a grassroots amateur tournament series on the platform. And you show some love to both like the viewers as well as the fans and the players and amateurs as well as pros. And you can really extend the period of time you have the activation. So we try to use all our verticals and kind of mix and match. Mm. Ooh. Uh, mm. Yep. So the way I started with esports, so honestly, the reason, so I used to work in sales back in the days, and I used to play a lot of Dota. I got 12,000 hours, I think, something like that. So we call that marketing research nowadays. I think I have 1,500 Pudge games and probably a 1,200 Earth Spirit games, something like that. And I used to be quite high ranked on the European leaderboard, but personally, I had issues finding competitive games. So for me, it was like, oh, here's something that I'm missing. And I brought on my two brothers, and we started thinking of like, how can we actually perhaps develop a service that kind of fulfills what I'm missing at least. And I started to talk to some of the friends I was playing with, and they had the same problem. And so we thought that, yeah, this could really be something. Um, and if you don't want to go all out and start your own company, I think that esports right now is it's kind of it's in a good spot because there's so much you can do within esports. So it doesn't matter like if you're a lawyer, you can do like player contracts or work within esports as a lawyer. If you're a chef, you can probably find a professional team that's looking for a team chef, whatever. Or if you work with marketing, then there's a lot of you can do with esports marketing and whatnot. So I think working with esports, like, it's probably same as any other industry. The fun thing is that it's quite a young industry and it's still quite fragmented. So there's a lot of opportunities to get in at like the base level and then kind of rise as a lot of companies grow. So I think networking is probably the biggest thing. Attend events, whether it's like LAN, whatever, big LAN esport events, or if it's perhaps conferences or other functions. And then I think LinkedIn is, I like LinkedIn. I think it's easy. I think networking with LinkedIn is good. Just like try to find people that you want to connect with, and then try to figure out what you want to do, what skills do you have, how could you fit in, and then try to find something to work with. Yeah.
I'm just thinking about like Epulze activities around the world. So I do have a lot of questions. So um, Epulze, as you said, started the activities in Europe, but like nowadays it's almost around the world. Like it's Asia, it's Latam. But is there a place, a country that you are considering to enjoy to start activities?
Yeah, I think we're focusing a bit on emerging markets. We started, the truth is also that we started the company in Sweden, and Sweden has, and the first game we had on the platform was Dota 2, and Sweden always had a very active and good Dota 2 community. We have a lot of good teams, alliance, and then a lot of good players. So we always had a semi-big Dota 2 community, but Sweden is like it's also quite a small country with like 10 million people. So compared to Brazil, or you go to Philippines or Indonesia, it's quite small. And so we took an active decision quite early to move outside of Sweden quite quickly. And the first region we expanded to was the CIS region. We found a really good guy in Ukraine, and he brought on a team with support staff and community members. So we built a really active user base from that Ukraine team in Kiev. And then I started talking to your friend Marcelo Felipe at I think I first met Felipe at ESL event in Frankfurt. He was living in Frankfurt at the moment, and he was like, "Oh, you should come to Brazil as well, because South America is really big." And then we started talking with Felipe, and it's like, "Yeah, let's expand to do something here in South America." And at the same time, we brought on Frank in Singapore, and Frank had really good connections in Malaysia with MDEC, the Economic Development Board in Malaysia, and so we founded a subsidiary in Malaysia to kind of deal with this Southeast Asian side of things. With that said, I think moving forward, what we're trying to do now is also have a bit tighter focus. So we analyzed a lot of data and realized which games are performing the best in which regions. And then now we're taking not a step back, but we're focusing a bit more on certain games in certain regions, rather than having like all the games in all the regions, because it's we need to be a bit more cost effective now during this economic downturn as well. Yeah. Oh, I forgot. So me and Pontus, we were at, I think it was ESL Frankfurt. It must have been like 2017 or something. It was a while back. And speaking of LinkedIn, maybe I even talked to him on LinkedIn, but I know I met
Markus,
him.
sorry, just a minute. Marcelo, seu som tá mutado
Ok.
na live.
Ok.
Just a technical problem. Sorry.
Yeah. No worries.
People were not listening
It's not
to
an
Marcelo.
it's not an esports event without technical problems.
No, but keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I met him at ESL Frankfurt, I think 2017 or something, and then we just started talking. So I think we played some as well, and yeah.
I was thinking here, you said about like these different markets, but professionally and I don't know, to you, like, what are the main differences between like these esport markets around the world? Like, what you saw that, I don't know, you surprised at you?
I think there's more similarities than differences, I would say, especially Brazil and Sweden, both huge, Counter-Strike nations with very good players and dedicated fan bases. But of course, there is a bit of different mentalities in some different regions, and I think the biggest difference is games. So some games just become really popular in one region, and some games become more popular in other regions. I think mobile games, for example, it's not that big in Sweden, but it's quite substantial in Southeast Asia, and I think a lot of it's moving towards more mobile games in a lot of different parts of the world. But other than that, I think I see more common things rather than differences with the esport communities. Yeah. But for us as well, it's been really, and I think that was one of the key things we figured out, or one of the main decisions we made, that it's really important to have like the local connections rather than as a Swedish company sitting in Sweden trying to figure out like which influencer, or how should we talk to the Brazilian community, or how should we interact with the Indonesian Mobile Legends communities. It's better to have like local people on a global scale, and have them work with what they're good at, and then their connections that they have locally. So as a company, that was an important decision, and it's something that we can really see value in, having local teams. But I think there's also a lot of similarities with the different communities, different countries.
Like, talking about Brazil, like if a company or a content creator wants to work with Epulze, like how they get in touch?
Talk to Marcelo. He will forward to me. You can always just add me on LinkedIn or send me an email, markus@epulze.com, or you can reach out to the support staff as well, and they will forward on the platform. So whatever way you prefer, but I'm always available.
One question that I have is I didn't work at Epulze when the major started, and how was it?
The major, the
Yes,
Lima one, or
the Lima one.
The Lima one, it was a lot of up and down, a lot of production problems, a lot of things going wrong, and then an amazing feeling with 9,000, I think, people in the arena banging the drums, doing the wave, and everything. So it was honestly a roller coaster of emotions. Leading up and afterwards and everything. It was a learning experience, to say the least. But yeah, a lot of fun, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of headache, a lot of smiles. So it was it was a lot of up and down. But speaking of like communities, that was probably one of the best feelings I've had in a long time. In the arena during the final day, when it was just packed. I think 9,000 people banging drums, screaming. It was, if you weren't there, I think you would have a hard time understanding the level of excitement and energy that was present in that arena that day. It was amazing. So I know we had a lot of production issues, especially in the earlier days, both the group stage and the playoffs in the arena. But I think we pulled through, and in the end, it was a really nice experience being there in the arena during the final day. It was really cool.
Talking more about like these events, there's any event that you love it the most to do, any project, or I don't know, a tournament that just it's in your heart?
To me, honestly, having that much hours playing in Dota 2, I always dreamt of being like involved into the DPC. So for me, this year has been really cool with being involved in two majors, as well as having the Southeast Asia Dota Pro Circuit League. We organized that together with EBN. So that online league has been going really well. I'm really happy with the production quality of that. I think the community has been really happy with that as well. So it's been a cool year to be a Dota fan and working with this. Other than that, I would love to be more involved into Valorant. We've done some Ignition series stuff for Riot in Southeast Asia, but looking into doing some stuff in Brazil and Southeast Asia next year as well. Yeah, just expanding the current operations and doing stuff in more games. And I think one thing we're excited about is also creating like an Epulze IP of our own. So rather than just doing majors, we will have like an Epulze tournament series that is, you know, where we kind of own the tournament series as well.
Nice. And do you pretend to do it again if you have the opportunity?
If I would do it again?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Always. We're waiting for the RFP this year, but we're planning on applying for a couple of majors next year, and we have some nice plans with that.
Talking about it, like, what are the next projects to come?
So we're doing one series that's called Masters of Gaming later this year. We're trying to get, we're working with one of our potential sales partners to do that as a joint venture with them. They come from like media sales kind of background within traditional sports. They've done store stuff for the Olympics, for FIFA, and I think the World Championship in handball and a bunch of other traditional sports ventures. So looking into doing an event with them, which will also then continue next year. It's going to be called Masters of Gaming. And we're going to start with Dota 2 in Southeast Asia, but then the plan is to do that in more regions as we go, as well as more game titles. So that's going to be our own IP. Other than that, we don't have anything 100% set right now. We're still planning for next year. And we are talking to sponsors and partners that we had this year and trying to, you know, get them on board for next year and see what can we improve, what can we do different, and how can we make things even more exciting for next year.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. And you have been done a lot of things in Dota 2. And how is it for the other games? Do you have projects to start in the professional scenario?
So the plan this year was to do a lot more games, but then we got involved into so many Dota 2 projects, so we couldn't really spend a lot of time and focus on other games as well. But the plan is to do other game titles, both Valorant, I think Counter-Strike, CS2, we're looking into that. Would love to do some MLBB stuff in the Southeast Asia, and we're all a mobile game developer with a FPS shooter game on mobile to do some esports tournaments, professional tournaments for them as well. I think moving forward, I think Epulze, we're quite well situated to deal with the whole kind of the whole ecosystem of esports. So both like the amateur grassroots stuff, we can handle that through our automated tournament platform. We can also cater to the semi-professional leagues as well as like the big pro offline tournament events. So we're talking to a bunch of game developers and seeing if Epulze can kind of be a one key solution for all of their kind of esports needs, which puts us in a good position to work with a lot of game developers who perhaps doesn't have the time or the manpower to put into running these esport events themselves. And I think talking to game developers, I can see a bit of shift in mentality where they understand the value of having an active grassroots esports community that are actively competing and forming teams and having a bit more skin in the game rather than just being casual players. And it creates like a longevity in the player base. So instead of just putting all their marketing efforts into perhaps working with streamers and influencers, they put a bit of marketing effort into actually, you know, creating a professional scene as well as a grassroots amateur scene. And Epulze can really be be an active part of that, facilitating all the grassroots stuff on the platform, but also helping to produce like the semi-pro and the pro leagues and doing the broadcast side of things with that as well.
Like thinking a little bit more about that, there is any college league that you work with? I'm saying that because me and Marcelo, we worked with college leagues here in Brazil.
He knows.
Yeah.
Yeah, not at the moment. I don't think so. We did a couple of qualifiers, I think, on the platform. College leagues, it's interesting, and I think especially if you can get some good brands involved, they're sponsoring and they can, really contribute in a good way to pay off the tuition fees or whatever. So probably something we should be more involved in, to be honest. Yeah, so it's a really exciting space, and it's a nice way to build a competitive ecosystem, having the different colleges play versus each other. It's something we should be more involved in.
Trying to use that question, how do you see the college scenario? Because my dream, of course, it was something like NFL or things like that. The people who is playing like as professional, they came from the university. Do you know that it's possible one day in esports?
Maybe, but then again, Valve recently, I think, didn't they recently put in a clause that, yeah, so teams can't own, so they kind of put in a clause to kind of counteract that. So teams cannot be owners of leagues anymore, like NFL or NBA or these franchise leagues. So they're counteracting that a bit, I would say. But then again, not necessarily, but I think it could work. It's I think what's lacking. Traditional sports have had hundreds of years figuring out. It's like same here in Sweden. So I think the one of the most popular sports, at least, is football here in Sweden, soccer, and so you have like the youth clubs. So when you're like 4 years old, you can go to like the youth club and you get like summer camp and you play some soccer. And if you think it's funny, then if you like it, then you can start playing when you're 6, 7. You start playing in the youth club, and then when you're 15, 16, if you're really good, they put you into the bit higher tier, and then there's a quite clear path. If you're trying to become a professional football player in Sweden, like there's a quite clear path on how to do that. And I think that's lacking in esports. In esports, it's like, yeah, you grind, you play your whatever 10,000 hours of Dota 2 matchmaking, and then you might end up in the same game as another player, and you form a team and maybe get picked up by a professional team, but there's not this clear path to becoming a pro. So collegiate leagues can probably help with that. And I think also what Epulze is trying to do with the platform side of things and trying to, grow the grassroots amateur scene, it's also quite helpful with that. So probably, but it needs a lot of work and it needs a lot of structure to get where you want it to go.
I'm thinking right now that I totally agree because, like, I think soccer works very similar here in Brazil, like this path.
Yeah.
And yeah, it lacks in sport. Just there's like how it was to have like a new game growing like the Valorant and like in the future CS2, how it is like to introduce in your platforms and like the tournaments, how you like study this market to know like with the game is like working in the community and like I don't know, in so many different countries, you know. So how it is like this working job to know more about the game, if it's working or not in the country, like so different, like a new game.
Yeah. I think that's coming back to the importance of having the local teams. So
Mm,
I'm basically not involved into that decision making at all on that level. I've just tried
mm,
to gather information, which games are working in which region,
mm,
and then having the local teams. We have a lot of really active players, a lot of players who, if they don't play the game themselves, then they at least know a bunch of people who does play it. And then we try to base our decisions on market data, like can we access any data on how many active players are in the region. We look for competitors. We look at Twitch a lot as well, so try to look into Twitch statistics and what's the viewership like for this game in this region. Is there a lot of Valorant streamers in Brazil? Is there a lot of Brazilians watching Valorant, the championships? How many people from Brazil are watching that? And we try to gather as much data as possible, and we try to make as informed decisions as possible based on that. And then we usually we try to make a decision like which game would have the most impact in as many regions as possible, and then also combine that with what's possible in our other verticals. So are we able to do a pro tournament in Valorant? And then that's good, because then we can also see benefits and the synergies from the broadcasting, funneling players back to the platform. And all of these things we make a decision based on, and then we do a test run, and then we see, okay, is there any activity? Can we change something with how the tournament is structured, the prize pool, the entry fee? How often is it 5 versus 5? Can we try one versus one? Can we do something different? So yeah, a lot of data, a lot of local knowledge that our local teams really provide a value for us, and we try to make our decisions based on that. And sometimes it works out, and sometimes we make bad decisions, and we have to pull some of the games, and we have to take a step back and focus on perhaps another game. Yeah.
Uh, this is something funny because when I worked at Epulze, it was something make me happy because they have like the real tournament, like I say, it's like against five, but they have like some short games like 2 against 2 or 1 against 1. This is something that I really like at Epulze. And one question that it's more like a curiosity. Have you ever done one tournament that they have a lot of uh, people trying to play, but you didn't have like a lot of people watching? You have a lot of players, but not like watchers for someone for watching the tournament.
If I understand correctly, but most of the platform tournaments, we don't have anyone watching. So if you want viewers, you need to have like a nice professional team, or like we've been trying to do a lot of broadcast for amateur stuff as well. Our initial plan with the Southeast Asian DPC was to run like a youth league at the same time as well, but we just didn't find any sponsors to cover it. For the old DPC, we basically only had one sponsor for like the first season, so DPC was not great revenue wise for us, so we didn't really have a lot of funds to put into other stuff. But our initial plan was to do like a grassroots amateur league for all Southeast Asia at the same time the DPC was going on. And then after the official DPC stream, we would just switch and broadcast like the final of the youth league or the amateur league as well, or start before the DPC stream or have a break in between or something like that. So still looking to do that in the future. I think it's important to showcase and broadcast not just like the best of the best. And I remember when I was playing, I wasn't even that good, but I played a lot, and I had some teams that I played with every now and then. And whenever our games were being broadcasted, it was really cool feeling. It's like there's probably like 50 people watching or something, but it feels kind of special when at least there's someone watching me play, and like you try extra hard and you really put into the effort. So we try to do some broadcasts, but usually we put the broadcasting focus on the professional teams, and then we try to, for the professional events, we try to do as much open qualifiers as possible to make it possible for amateur teams to qualify as well. And then usually we try to open up for community streamers as well. So if you have like a Brazilian community streamer, he's probably going to follow like the Brazilian team in the qualifiers, and he's going to, you know, have a broadcast on that. And then you have maybe a Peruvian community caster and English one, and they all follow different teams. So try to get as much coverage as possible into that as well.
Just using that, it's good even for market, you know, because if you are broadcasting the game, for example, my game, that it's not an influencer, and I did a good game, a good play, I would make like some clips and use that in my social media.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I'm thinking here, like our main goal in the project is to help new people to like get in the market. But you told us how it was the idea of like creating Epulze, but how it was it? Like how you acquire the knowledge to found a company, you know? Like how is it? Like, oh, I have an idea. How I go on? You know?
A bit of Googling, I would say. No, so initially I had an idea for quite a long, and I was like, I never, you know, I was good in sales. I was really good in sales, but I didn't have any, like, I wasn't able to code. I couldn't build a website. I didn't, you know, know anything. So I had this idea for a couple of years, and I was Googling every now and then, like, you know, trying to find a platform like Epulze, and I couldn't. So eventually I called my brother. My brother, some of his friends had started some other companies, and he just got back from business school. And I basically called him. I was like, I have this idea what I would like to do with an esports tournament competitions platform. And then we started doing some like math on revenue projections and whatnot, none of which has been, you know, hit since, but it was good. We did these revenue projections. We're like, oh my god, it's going to be like really quickly, we're going to make a lot of money. We didn't. It's a long-term play, but it was good. I thought it would be quicker back then, because if I knew how much time and effort you would need to put into it, maybe, you know, we never would have started. But anyway, so I called my brother and we started thinking about it. And then I called my other brother, my younger brother, Pontus. So we're three brothers who started the company. My older brother, Matthias, myself, and my younger brother, Pontus. And
Matthias
my
is you at
father
Epulze?
and my... what?
Matthias is you at Epulze?
Matthias is... what at...
No, Matthias is still working at Epulze?
Yeah, he's still working.
I didn't know him.
Oh, okay. No, it's my older brother Matthias. It's me and my younger brother Pontus, and then my father and my uncle are also kind of part of it. They don't actively work, but they contributed some funds in the beginning when we started up the company. So basically, we took all the savings that we had and we put it together. And I moved. So I used to live in Stockholm. My younger brother Pontus also used to live in Stockholm. And my older brother Matthias just got back from the US from school, and we all moved back to my father's place. Being like 30 years old, moving back to your father is very uncommon in Sweden. And then we took all the savings we had, and we managed to get some good governmental funding. So that's a really good part being in Sweden. The government is quite good with these governmental fundings, and especially the city where we live, Örebro, they had some really good programs we could apply for as well. So, and then we got some loans from the government to start the company. And then we managed to find a really, really, really good development team. And so we hired them from the beginning to build like an MVP of the platform. And then we took that MVP of the platform and we talked to some investors, and we told them our grand vision for the company, and they gave us some more money to invest in the company. And we brought on the development company as well as early investors, and basically traded stocks for development. So we brought them on as owners as well. And then we started, building the platform, and it came from there. And everything else in between, you just have to learn, Google and ask people and network. And same advice as with just like trying to get a job. Like, just try to find people who are better at something than you are, and try to learn from them and ask them, what you should do and how you should do it.
Just for we are going to the last part. Like, you have 10 more minutes. I have two questions for you. First one, how long it was? Because you told like you have to come back for your dad's house. So how long from you start your idea to launch the platform? In the second one, uh, there was one time that you thinking about like give up, or no? You are like sure that you wanted that.
So the first one, I don't really remember. We moved back in like 2015, and I think we launched the platform 2016, and then 2018 to 2016, we founded the company 2015. We launched the MVP 2016, and then we added some functionality 2017, and the full tournament system in like 2018 or something like that. So it was a couple of years in between. But living at my father's place, like, we didn't take any salary for I think 3 years or something. So just like no salary at all, just moved back to my father's place and live. He cooked dinner, and we just like work all day and all night, and just do nothing else than work. Initially, same thing. When I moved back to my dad, I was like, it's going to be like half a year, just like until we get the company set up, and then I'll get my own apartment and whatnot. And it's like turned into, I think I lived in my dad's place for 5 years or something. So dating life was tough during that time. But no, never thought of giving up. Honestly, it's one of the things I really enjoy. It's like the responsibility, but also the freedom that kind of comes with it. And it's the highs and low. It's very stressful at times when there's a lot of things that you have to figure out. But at the same time, when it's going well, and when you figure things out, the victories are just like huge. So, and I like the freedom and the responsibility and the mix that comes with it, and you can really work on a lot of different things, and so I never thought of giving up for a second. It's also really nice to have your work with your family like that as well, and have the all the family involved, and kind of back you up when you have a tough time. It's a good feeling. So no, never thought of giving up.
I do have a question like about it, because nowadays I work with games, but like my family doesn't like that much. So how it was like your dad, what he was thinking about, like, oh my god, my two sons are just trying to work with games, like, oh my god, how was like this welcoming from him?
Just
Yeah, no,
complementing the
no.
question, it was in 2015, which was like more stranger than now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was strange. So it took a while. Like, my dad and my mom, they always been really supportive of what we're doing with the company, and from the get go, I think we had, so me and my two brothers, we kind of made a presentation. We made a pitch. We're like, this is what we're gonna do, and this is how we're gonna how it's gonna look like. So I think they always been very supportive. My mom always said we work too much. And I think she had a bigger problem with the actual time I spent on playing games rather than working with esports and games. She's fine with that. She thinks we work too much. Um, but Yeah, it took a while until everyone in my family kind of understood what it is we're doing. It's the same with my friends as well. Like when you explain to them, like, oh, we're building this platform and you can compete against each other. It's like the games and oh, so you build games. No, no, we use games that already exist, but this is a competitions platform. You try to make them understand. And I remember my grandma. So me and my brothers, we've been trying to teach our grandma, like, this is what we're doing, this is esports, people compete in games and blah blah blah. And she's like, yeah, whatever, wherever you kids today. She doesn't really understand. And then there's a TV show on Swedish television called, I think, like, the Champions of Champions, and it's former sports stars, like traditional sports stars, football players, skiers, whatever, that compete in a bunch of different competitions on television. And a couple of years ago, they brought on Heaton, the Counter Strike player, as one of the participants, because he's quite buff as well, So, and he was on television, and the day after, my grandmother called us, and she's like, "Oh my God, you wouldn't believe he's doing the things that you're kind of talking about, and it's amazing. You should see, like, there's millions of people apparently watching online, and oh, I saw clips from this arena. You should see, they're crazy." And I'm like, Grandma, this is what I've been trying to tell you for, like, I don't know, 5 years. This is what we're doing. And she didn't, like, it wasn't real to her until she saw it on, like, traditional, television, and the TV telling her, like, this is a real thing. So, but now she can understand. So it's yeah, it's kind of sweet.
My mom is kind of that because I have been working with esports like for 5 years. So every time that she saw something on TV, she say, "This is the game that work," and I say, "No, no, mom, no, that it's not." The last question, Marcos. You want to do another one, Flavia?
No, no, I would just say that I have like a very similar story with my mom that, like, my mom, I try to explain everything to her, and like, as your grandma, like, oh, okay, okay. But once I was like working at this esports team, and they were playing and was broadcasting in the TV, and was like, "Mom, look, it's this, like, look." And then she was like, "Oh, good," and proud. But no, I don't have any more questions.
The last question is one question for Letty. She usually does that. Letty is another girl who works with us. Uh, if you have one golden tip for someone who wants to start in esports, what you would say?
I think, going back to what I said earlier, is try to get a network, try to find people who, um, don't be afraid to reach out. I think, like, if you believe you can contribute in some way, uh, go tell the person you want to work with, this is how I want to contribute to your company, or how I want to be part of it. If you have an idea, try to start doing it in a small scale or big scale. And if you can't do it yourself, try to find someone you can do it with. There's lots of forums right now as well for, like, oh, I have this idea, and try to find someone to get going with, and start something with. Use LinkedIn, network in real life, attend events where you are located, and really just try your best to get a foot in. There's right now, I think it's a probably it's a bit of an economic downturn, and a lot of esports companies are downsizing, which does mean it might be a bit hard to get your foot in right now. But also, I think there's a blue ocean market with whoever is going through, like, this acid bath, and it's a tough time, but on the other side is going to be good development for companies. So I think in the next year or two, it's going to be a lot of opportunities opening up. So good to kind of build your network in time for that, and try to get on board.
That's it. Thank you, Marcus. just 1 minute to promote whatever you want. Like how we find you on the internet or Epulze?
It's epulse.com, epulse.com. You can find daily tournaments in Dota 2, Counter-Strike, Valorant, Rocket League, and Mobile Legends. Adding Critical Force soon as well. It's a mobile shooter and some other games. So just head over there. Epulse Gaming on all socials. Go follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel and catch the latest broadcast. Myself, find me on LinkedIn, Markus Lövgren, with the weird in my last name, the Swedish letter. But search ePulse on LinkedIn and feel free to connect. I'm happy to talk to you. So yeah.
Thank you so much. So thank you everyone that is here seeing like Esports 101. Follow us in all the socials. And that's it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for having me.